Welcome to Really Cool Stuff for the Home podcast, sponsored by HomeWerks. And now with today's show on all the ways to improve your home is your host, Denise Sanchez.
Hello, everybody. This is Denise Sanchez from HomeWerks, Really Cool Stuff for the Home, where we try to make your homework better for you. And one of the ways we do that is by offering amazing luxury appliances that not only are beautiful, but they do, the expectations are just beyond your expectations. And there's no planned obsolescence involved in these products. And one of the best, most outstanding line is the Miele line. And we've been talking about quite a few things with Jeff Polucci. Hello, Jeff. How are you doing?
Hi, Denise. Good to be back.
He is a national sales manager. He knows everything about everything when it comes to Miele, the history, whether it's appliances, their chemicals. He is a wealth of knowledge, and he's a lot of fun too. So it makes these video podcasts just fly by.
It does.
But
they are fun.
We're going to talk about ranges. Oh my gosh, Jeff, there's so much to talk about. Last week, remember how the dishwasher video podcast flew by?
Yes.
This is going to be
snap of a finger, it was over.
I know. I remember when the ranges, when Miele said that the United States was such an important segment of their offerings, that they decided to make what we love so much here in the United States, and that is ranges. And they did a beautiful job. They have offerings from 30 inches all the way up to 48 inches, and some with gas, some dual fuel, all different types of electronics. And I just want you to speak about the evolution of this offering, if you can, about Miele looking at us and saying, wow, the U.S., they're really important to us now.
Oh, there's no question. The U.S. subsidiary is the fastest growing subsidiary within the Miele group globally. And what's interesting is that 2005 was really when Miele Germany realized that the only way that the U.S. subsidiary was going to get, where it needs to be and where it should be within the global Miele network was to provide what they call the heart of the kitchen.
Right.
And the heart of the kitchen, especially in the United States, especially in Texas, is the professional range. It literally is the thing that a lot of people start with and even design the entire kitchen around.
It's the hearth of the kitchen.
It's the hearth of the kitchen. That's right. So it is a category that we didn't have. But what's interesting is we spent just over 9 years in the development of that category. And when we introduced the category in 2015, it did not come lightly. It took us.
2005. The category was.
We introduced them in the States in 2015. We started working on it in 2005. So all of those years of working on it was spent in building it from the ground up, looking at all the other competitors. What do they do? What do they not do? What do people complain about? What do they wish they had? And we really bent over backwards to try and solve all of those problems prior to introducing our range. It was a labor of love. It took a long time. It cost a lot of money, but it was well worth it. Our product is outstanding.
And you're right. When people come into our store at HomeWerks, we start a conversation about what they want. And we always start with the cooking, whether it's gas, dual fuel, induction, which you even offer an induction range.
Yep.
But then we kind of build from there, right? And find out what their needs are and how they like to cook. And there is gas. You offer an all gas range. You offer a range we call dual fuel, which is gas on top, and the second fuel source is electric for the electric oven, so dual fuel. And with the dual fuel, you get a lot more electronics because you have electric ovens. Can you kind of talk about those offerings?
Well, the whole reason that dual fuel pro ranges are the most commonly sold, they're also the most commonly sought. And the reason that they are is because you kind of get the best of both worlds. You get the response and power of gas, but you get the temperature uniformity of electricity with the oven, and then you add convection to that, and then you add electronics to that, and you've got a performance package that is truly impressive.
Right. And on the flagship range, which is a 48-inch dual fuel range. Listen to this, y'all. Okay, so you have your 8 burners on top. You can have 6 burners in a griddle or 6 burners in a grill, just like your outdoor
Yep.
gas grill. Then you have your ovens. You have 2 ovens, but one oven you have with a wireless roast probe.
Hmm.
Then you have your left oven, which is very generous compared to most 48-inch ranges. I
Yep.
mean, you can get a huge 14.5 by 11 baking dish.
Yep.
That's about the biggest dish you can get to buy. And not only is that an oven, a convection oven, but it's also a microwave. And wait, there's more. You also get a warming drawer underneath that. And wait, there's more. You also get a water line that you can bring in to this range's oven to allow it to produce moisture. And I want you to kind of expand on all that now that I've teased everybody about all the neat things on that range.
Well, it's interesting. When we were deciding what to put underneath of the range top, we really did a lot of surveying to find out what people wished they had underneath of a 48-inch range top. And so the main oven, what they really wanted to do was make sure that their 20-pound turkey fit in there. Well, it fits in our main oven perfectly with a lot of room to spare. And with that moisture control that you were just referencing, the caramelization to make the skin nice and crispy and make all those spices blend in perfectly is absolutely pristine. There's no better way to cook a turkey. And then to the left of that, you have what's called a speed oven. And that is going to be your 220-volt microwave oven and combination. So it can do all 3 or 2 of the 3 at one time. And then below that, you're going to have your combination warming drawer and slow cooker. So that warming drawer can slow cook. So you really have 3 cooking appliances underneath of a 48-inch range top, all with the room to handle whatever you want to handle, and with so many varieties of features and functions that there really isn't anything you can't do. It's pretty amazing.
Exactly. I had a customer in the other day and said, wow, this is my whole kitchen right here. I don't need it. So all you need a dishwasher, you need a hood, and you need your refrigeration, and you're done. You've got your whole kitchen right there.
Yeah, we're trying to figure out how to make our ranges wash clothes, but that's going to take a little longer.
Oh my gosh. So it sounds like a complicated situation, for the steam, the water line, but it's not. Can you kind of expand on that?
It's just it's an atomizer. It's basically a water line that goes through a very, very fine orifice, and as a result of that, it puts mist into the oven in up to 3 bursts per function. And what's interesting is that misting inside of a hot oven has profound effects to meats, baked goods, breads, brownies. It makes pie crusts flaky like a bakery. It'll make a rib roast have a beautiful caramelized surface, which just gives you that nice crunch when you cut into it. It's absolutely amazing. But it's not something that really is going to fail on you, because it's just mist that is sprayed in, and you can either have the oven decide when to add it based on you saying, I want it medium rare, or I want the bread to be slightly browned or more brown. It will decide, or you can manually actually just hit a button and burst on your own. So you have choices, automatic or manual.
And speaking of this, so we have all these different. How many different cooking modes are there on this oven?
I don't even know the number.
I mean, seriously, at least 15.
Oh, at least there's a lot. I couldn't even name them. There's so many.
Yeah. So convection, auto roast, convection roast, broil is the convection broiling, bottom bake, top bake, surround bake, intensive bake. That's just some of them, right?
And it's all designed so that you can get exactly the results you're looking for. Even if somebody wanted to cook a pizza like they had a baking stone. We call that intensive, and it emulates a baking stone, right? The convection system even changes speed based on what you choose. So it's an adaptive system. It's not just blind. It's adaptive.
And for those who don't know or think it's too much to overwhelm, they can go to the Master Chef. This is brilliant. So now we're not just picking a cooking mode and deciding the temperature and the manual burst. Now we're picking a food, a recipe, and it's doing all the work for us. I want you to kind of talk about that, because you do a great job of this.
Oh, thank you. We started developing Master Chef programming in the late 90s, and I can tell you that the result of all of that research and development was that we we spent years test cooking. And every time we would cook something, we would write down exactly what to do to make it medium, medium rare, medium well done, whatever it was. And then we would write that into programming. And what's interesting is that we created this interface platform called MasterChef, which is where all the user has to do is hit MasterChef, poultry, chicken, 2 pounds, go, and it does it for you. It will literally cook it for you. It decides whether to bake it, brown it, roast it, broil it, convection, whatever you want it to do, whatever it wants to do, and it decides its own time. It'll even tell you to use the temperature probe if it wants to use the temperature probe. So it's all about helping people cook like a chef without being a chef, hence the name MasterChef.
And their probe that they asked to put in is wireless. So they've made everything super simple. So you don't have to worry about fiddling with popping it inside to the wall of the oven to connect it to the food. It makes it super, super simple. And it even tells you when to put the food in the oven. It tells you which rack to put the food in the oven. And here's another thing. If you don't open the oven door, it tells you, it keeps prompting you until you open the oven door, and then it gives you the next step. I mean, it's just incredibly smart, super, super easy. And it's beautiful. I mean, it's stunning, isn't it? It's absolutely gorgeous.
I think it's beautiful. And I have to say, one of the most compelling parts of the Pro Ranges is the steel, because the steel that's on it is patented. It's not a normal steel.
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
It's a higher grade steel. It's an 18-10 mixture, so it's 10% nickel. That makes the steel harder and more resistant to oxidation. But the clean touch coating on top of it is able to not only resist fingerprints magnificently, but it doesn't bend light. So when you look at the front of the range in spotlights or canned lights or anything like that, it doesn't look bent or warped or bowed like so many of the other ranges out there do. It reflects straight. So it doesn't show fingerprints, never needs to be shined, and it doesn't bend light. There's nothing else like it. No one else has it.
I did not know that. I always wonder why it looks different. Now I know why. Now, another thing too is that on the micro speed oven, I have a lot of customers that will tell me that they use that as their main oven because it's so quick, it's nice and compact, but it still has a lot of room. When I take that big lasagna dish, I call it a lasagna dish, and I pop it in there so that they can see, I pop it all, and it goes all the way deep. And I said, really, unless you're doing a turkey, what could you not do in here? Right? And also how easy it is to do the microwave, that sort of thing. But it also has all the same programs that the oven has. It just doesn't have the moisture.
Yeah, that's right. As a matter of fact, that's a key point. I'm glad you brought that up, Denise, because when we were designing the range oven and the range capabilities, we wanted to make sure that the oven that you got in the range would perform identically to the oven in the wall. And I know that almost may seem like, well, of course you would do such a thing, but do you know how rare that is? I mean, to actually buy a brand of wall oven by the same brand range, and the range oven doesn't do anything like the wall oven does.
Right.
Even if you choose the same function, it doesn't produce the same result. And we wanted to make sure that it did. That's one of the reasons it took so long to develop these things, more than 9 years, because we wanted to ensure that if you like the oven, you're going to like the range. It's going to give you the same performance. We did that intentionally.
And even on the micro speed oven, there's a broiler. So you can use it kind of like, a toasting, what do you call those, toaster ovens?
Toaster ovens, yeah.
And because it's so nice and compact, you could get rid of the toaster oven. You've got that in that micro speed oven as well.
Well, what's interesting is that you had said earlier that a lot of people use that as their main oven. What's interesting is that around the world, that's actually very true. Here in the United States, it's more the exception rather than the rule, only because people don't try. What's interesting is that, we've made the speed oven just as easy to use as the oven, right?
Right.
It is a 220 volt, 3-element, 1,000-watt microwave, 3-in-1 type of appliance. You can cook a 12-pound bird in there, right? Just like you do the oven. It's designed to give you the exact same results as our oven, but in a third less time. It is a spectacular piece. That's why when people do try it,
they
you're
love
exactly
it.
right.
Yes,
they end up using it most of the time.
Well, in our store, they're going to know all about the micro speed
Absolutely.
oven, and so that's why we get this kind of feedback. We tell people, this is your oven. And we also tell them this should be your primary oven. It's quick, easy to use.
Yep.
Myself, I have 2 Miele ovens and mine are ancient. I'm getting ready to redo my kitchen again because my ovens are about 24 years old, but
Wow.
they're still great. In fact, they're the 27-inch ovens.
Wow.
I know, but a couple of years ago, I did get the micro speed oven with the Sensortronic electronics. And every Christmas, I buy a tenderloin, 2 of them, 2 big ones from Costco.
Yep.
The prime tenderloins, couldn't get them this year, though. They just ran out of them. They only had choice. So I ended up doing something else, but because the prime is so good.
Sure.
But I can put both of the prime tenderloins in my micro speed oven. I use the roast probe. I tell it I want it to be rare.
Yep.
And what it does is it brings it to a high temperature, sears the outside, just like grandma would do. Then it drops the temperature down to a roasting mode at 325. It lets me know when it's ready. I take it out, Jeff. I let it rest like the pros do.
Of course. Yeah.
And then when I carve into that, I get oohs and ahs from my family. It looks like I am carving a tenderloin at a carving station in a big fancy hotel.
Yeah.
I mean, it's beautiful. And I do my dressing in it. I mean, I do big batches of dressing. So it's my third oven. And believe me, it is very, very useful. Very useful.
What's interesting is when we were developing that program and that how that works and produces that result, this was all done in Germany. We imported all the food that we tested was from the United States because we were actually building the range product and its components for the United States. Okay. So all of the food testing, we brought in food from New York. We brought in so much meat that we actually got flagged by the German government because they thought we were a restaurant. an unlicensed restaurant, but it was all for the testing labs. So, the results that you're describing, first of all, I'm thrilled to hear that, but that's exactly what we intended it to do. And it took us millions of dollars in food to ensure that happened.
And I think that Miele was the first to come out with food-driven programs. Am I correct, right?
Yeah, that is correct. The biggest mistake we made was we didn't patent it.
Oh, well, no one comes close to the offerings that you do offer. And I love that you have 3 different types of electronics for your the ranges. You have on the gas where you just turn it on, and manipulate it like that.
That's
then
called direct select.
Then we have the dual fuel with the like the Sensortronic, right?
Well, the dual fuel ranges are going to be M-Touch.
Okay, M-Touch. Okay,
Yep.
like the swish of a phone, like your smartphone,
exactly.
right?
Yep.
And it's so cool. It's so easy and it's so intuitive. Everyone knows how the swish when you kind of just scroll through, and then it opens up to different things, and it's just this intuitive.
That's
but
right.
also too, during this COVID, you hear a lot about making bread. I mean, bread is just like a huge resurgence, right? Of making homemade bread.
Yep.
We have a lot of time on our hands. We want to do something cool, so that we make bread. Tell them about the bread offerings. Oh my gosh.
Okay, so this is such an interesting topic because we have at least 15 different kinds of breads with at least 5 different stages of browning each.
Right.
Okay. And what's interesting is that we developed the Master Chef menu system so that within the electronics, you will never see this, but you will experience it. There are stages in the programming. So if you say you pick San Francisco sourdough bread and you want it to be lightly browned, within that program, there are heating stages. So it heats, floats, and that allows the dough to expand at the right speed. A lot of times these automatic menu systems are just shortcuts. This is not a shortcut. And so what happens is the bread can expand at the right speed. It browns beautifully. Round loaves actually end up staying round, right? And the bread comes out like a bakery. It's absolutely spectacular, but it was intentional and tested to make sure that it did.
I know. And here's the thing: you can literally put it in, and starting from proofing all the way to the end without even opening the door
That's
to
right.
do anything. It does
That's right.
everything for you, and it emits moisture during certain time of the process, and
all
it comes
automatic.
out. Yes, it's just unbelievable. And
Yep.
the bread offerings, my favorite is the cinnamon raisin.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, so good, so good. I don't know if I should mention this, but I had heard talk that you were going to develop some kind of recipes for bread to have that as an offering. Are you all looking at doing anything like
Oh,
that?
I could tell you, but I'd have to kill you.
Okay.
There's some neat things coming. I'll just say that.
Okay, I would love to see that. Okay, so let's talk about the top of the range too, because they have some unique burners
Yes.
that are unique to everybody.
Yes.
They have the high BTUs, and I want you to talk about that, but also talk about how that flame transitions from one to the
Yep.
next.
Yeah, we spent years on this burner, and there's a lot of very, very good ranges with very good burners out there, but ours is totally unique. First of all, it is a dual port burner, so it's got 2 rows of flame, but only one valve controls it. And what that means is that the flame is controllable all the way up to all the way down with no reignition in the middle, which means it can't flash. That's number one. But number two, it's an incredibly quiet burner. There are a lot of burners out there that are quite loud. This is a ridiculously quiet burner, but my favorite part is the fact that the burner head itself is shaped like a cone. It's conically shaped, and that causes the flame to wrap around the cap. So when you turn it down from high to a middle range, the fingers of the flame, I don't know if you can see this, but the fingers of the flame go from this to this, and they actually curl around the cap, and it creates a blurry heat signature so that you get a cushion of heat instead of a ring of heat, because a ring of heat can scorch. Okay. We're the only ones that do this. It is the most impressive thing to show somebody how those fingers just close around the burner cap and create that cushion of heat. It's a magnificent design. Literally no one else does it. And it creates spectacular results from the hardest boil to the gentlest simmer, all the way in between.
What are the BTU ratings on these?
19,500 down to 695.
Oh, that's
And
low.
what's interesting is that there are a lot of ranges out there that have lower numbers, but we actually simmer better. And the reason for that is because the BTU number does not determine performance. The design of the burner head does.
That's correct. Yes, yes, sir. And I know too that like on the low end burner, there are some out there that what they do is they kind of play with the numbers game, and they will they'll be on, off, on, off, on, off. And then you calculate it, they have a low BTU, but they will still scorch and burn your chocolate or your butter or whatever.
Yeah, most chefs don't want their flame to come on and off. And the system you're talking about is basically on for 8 seconds and off for 52 for every minute. And that's not the best way in the world to keep something simmering up. A low steady flame is better. The key is to get the flame away from the pan and let the heat roll. And that creates a cushion. It's like putting your head on a pillow or a brick. What do you want to do?
Right. And then on the griddle, can you talk a little bit about their griddle? Because they do get a great result, just like if you're in a restaurant.
Yeah, the griddle is spectacular. I remember working on that specifically because we wanted to make sure that the complaints on griddles were that they were uneven in temperature, or when you dropped a steak on there, it would cool the griddle down. You had to flip side to the side instead of in place. So we made the griddle extremely heavy, extremely dense. We gave it an infrared ceramic plate burner head to produce the heat, and we also sheathed the griddle inside of a cast iron glove. And so the combination of the heat source and the density, once that heats up, I mean, you got to take about 15 minutes to preheat it. But once you get it preheated, you can use 100% of the surface the same way. And it never slows down. You can cook all day long on it, never slows down. I think my favorite demonstration is a dozen scrambled eggs at one time, because it's so even in temperature that you can actually corral and fold a dozen eggs at one time, which in a 12-inch griddle is almost impossible.
And a lot of people don't realize that griddles are not just for pancakes and hamburgers. Anything that you would use a flat bottom pan for, you could use on the griddle.
Absolutely.
It could be teppanyaki, it could be your steak, your chicken. It could be just whatever you would use a flat bottom pan for.
Absolutely.
And also it's a great, so say you're having a turkey day. Maybe you're doing a 36-inch range and you did 4 burners and a griddle. So I could see where 6 burners might be kind of convenient on those special days. But you can take your pan, so you've done the green beans, you can take your pan and you can have them sit on the griddle as a warming plate, or turn on the griddle and now you've got like a French top where you can actually put you can boil your beans on the griddle. So you're not losing, burners. You're really not. And when you're looking at like preparing green beans and things, you don't need a specialty flame in order to achieve a good result for that. So, when I tell people about that, I rarely sell a range without a griddle. Because, especially people that have never had something like that, they're so, intimidated by the griddle. Well, what if I never use the griddle? Or what if, I don't like a griddle? Well, you will love this griddle because it's just like the griddle that they have in restaurants. And if you start to think outside the box and don't just think about pancakes, and think about warming and cooking on it, you'll never look back. And that's the feedback I get as well.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people make the mistake of trying to compare a permanent cold rolled steel griddle to a griddle plate. Like where you take a griddle and set it on top of fry eggs and stuff. That is like comparing a tricycle to a jet plane. There you go. There's no comparison at all. And so when they say, what if I don't like it? The fact is they've never used one.
Exactly. They never used one. Yes. But when you have a conversation with them about that, just like what we were talking about, then it starts to open their eyes, and they just never thought of it in that way. No one ever mentioned it like that. Yeah.
I would never get a pro range without a high density griddle. And when it comes to all the high density griddles out there, in all honesty, ours is spectacular. I don't know of anybody that can even match its performance.
Right. Now, the grill is something I don't sell a lot of, frankly. And the reason is, we have 365 days a year just about that we can grill outside. So outdoor kitchens are huge here in San Antonio and the surrounding area. But in the north, I know they do use the grill quite a bit. And what is your feedback that you get from customers on the grill?
The biggest complaint with grills is that they are uneven in temperature, just like the griddles, and they're difficult to clean. So one of the things we did with ours was we made the temperature just as even on the grill as it is on the griddle, which, by the way, took years to do, okay? And we also made sure that the grill grate is dishwasher safe. And we went even farther and made sure that the dishwashers have a cycle that's specifically to clean them. So we really tried to make sure that every angle of using the grill is there. Completely even temperature, variable temperatures. You can turn it all the way up, all the way down, anywhere you want in between. So even performance and ease of cleaning.
Right. There's so many things to talk about on this range. It really is. What are the other things that you can elaborate on that you think that the listening audience would love to know?
Honestly, I think when you look at all the pro ranges that are out there and you look at each range as a package of functions, okay, kind of toss out the gizmos and sparklies and things like that, and just look at the range as a tool. Every part of it is a tool. It's like a tool bag, okay? When you look at a range as a tool bag and you think about, what do I want to do? What would I do if I could? And then I start looking at those functionalities and comparing, does this griddle work like this? This burner work like this? Is it going to do what I want it to do? What if I expand my offering? I think Miele's total package is very difficult to beat, let alone match. And I just think, everything that we've talked about today, most ranges don't have those things.
Right, exactly. And so, also to be able to stay for a long time, no planned obsolescence, seriously. Because when you look at electronics, Jeff, a lot of times people are intimidated by that because that's what they expect to go bad first. That's right. And again, with Miele, because they do that all inside, within Miele, they don't sub out, the electronics or the engineering. That is one of the things that you can count on with Miele, is that those electronic features are going to last.
Have you ever seen a 20-year cell phone?
No, right?
And you never will. No. But what's interesting is that our swipe screen is a 20-year screen, And we can
Amazing.
electronically update the electronics for current programming.
Right. We can actually take a computer, we
That's
call
right.
them an MDU, and we can actually flash them and update them.
That's right. That's exactly right.
When they have something like that. And also too, the electric ovens are self-cleaning, which is nice as well. And I want to talk, this is the last thing because we're running out of time, but on the self-cleaning feature, this is cool because one of the things about self-cleaning features is that people understand this too, that every time you use that feature, you've diminished the life expectancy of your range.
That's correct.
With Miele, that is not so. I wanted you to elaborate on that as quickly as you can.
That's probably the biggest problem we solved. We made the walls and the porcelain so thick and the seams and door seals so tight that the oven does not destroy itself when it self-cleans itself. It also doesn't heat up the room, stink up the room. It doesn't burn out the electronics. We even glass infused the racks, rails, runners, and ball bearings so they can stay in the oven during self-cleaning.
Which is so cool.
I know. The oven is designed for at least 1,000 self-cleanings. The best you're going to find out there is about 50.
That's
so we're
huge.
20 times stronger. There's no one even close to us.
Yeah, that's huge. That's amazing. It really is. And you know what? The time has flown by once again. I can't believe
Are we done
it, Jeff.
again?
Yes, yes.
Oh my
It's
gosh.
amazing. I know, Jeff. But I hope people that can listen to this and see the value of why they want to look at the Miele range, as something that they want to consider.
Definitely worth considering. Yes.
Right. And you have, Miele has a beautiful website, mieleusa.com, and you can even do a comparison on the ranges, and it goes through all the different features of the ranges. When you go to mieleusa.com, when you bring up ranges, go to the top of the page where it says discover more, because that's where you get into your videos and things that explain all the neat features. And then you've got, of course, HomeWerksSA.com, where you can view this video podcast. The top of the page, you'll see our podcast, and also check out, the Miele offerings and our website as well, or come into our showroom where we'll make your homework better for you with fabulous offerings like the Miele range. Jeff, thank you once again. You have just been
My
awesome.
pleasure.
Awesome. And I learned some things today. Thank you so much, Jeff.
Thank you, Denise.
HomeWerks, cool stuff for the home. We're going to make your homework better for you.